the issue of violence during our elections, we know that in 2015, President Jonathan did say that, I mean, his being re-elected wasn't worth the blood of any Nigerian. Maybe the leaders do not want any violence, but for some strange reason, every time we have elections, we hear of people dying, and this is not acceptable. And this seems to be, it seems to be now a part of our electoral process. What should we be doing to make sure that no one, but no one, loses their life during elections in Nigeria?
Well, I'll go back to what my elders there had said. Most educated people don't get involved in violence. Rather, unfortunately, they instigate, but they don't get directly involved because education creates hope. It makes you feel there's something you look up to. Even if you don't have a job, you believe you are educated enough, you have an opportunity, you are likely to get a job, so you don't get involved in violence. But you see, the irony of education, too, in the Nigerian electoral system, as I've observed, is that most educated people don't actually get involved in voting. Go and sample most communities where you have high literacy level. They don't. Even in rural states, if you go to environments where a lot of the elites live, you will be shocked to know that a lot of people don't have permanent voters' cards. Look at what happened in Lagos at the governorship election. Less than 30% of the total number of registered voters actually came out to vote. So the educated people must get seriously and genuinely involved in the electoral process. Where you have educated people getting really involved, believe me, they have the means to think about how to arrest some of these scenarios. And of course, I know one other aspect that you can avoid violence
let me put something,
penalty.
Let me put something to you. I don't know if you noticed that the voter turnout in 15 was higher than the voter turnout in 19. And that even the elite, whom you are choosing to call educated, they are prepared to exercise their franchise. But when they see things happen, for instance, the things that happened for the presidential elections, and they see all the vote buying, they see all the snatching of ballot papers, the burning of ballot papers, all of which were seen visually. It wasn't hearsay. Why would they want to waste their time, in quotes, going to be part of a process in which they know that their votes are not going to count?
Okay, you made mention of you made mention of 2015. In terms of comparing the number of voters, the turnout of voters with 2019. I will tell you that, unfortunately, in Nigeria, what defines the activism of Nigerians, and that includes all of us, if we want to be frank, is the issue of faith, the issue of ethnicity, the issue of geopolitical groupings, and what have you. Believe me, if the 2019 election had been between a Muslim and a Christian, or between a northerner and a southerner, believe me, you would have seen more number of votes than you saw in the last elections. Unfortunately, that is how Nigeria is. People get more involved when there are issues that touch them emotionally, which I would say is really unfortunate. But that is how Nigeria has been. If you look at the pattern of voting, but I would say that if we say yes, coming out, we have had instances, like you said, of violence in the presidential election. How does staying back for the governorship help us? It doesn't help. You cannot effect a change by doing nothing. I think we must get more and more involved. And like I was saying earlier before you interjected, there has to be penalties for those who perpetuate violence. Because if you look at Nigeria election cycle, after every violent cycle, it goes up, nobody talks about it. There has to be a way of penalizing them. And I think the electorate, all of us, we have a role to play. I'll give you an example with Borno State. You are talking about elections, but I would give you an example with how the people of Borno have responded to Boko Haram. Between 2011 to 2013, there was a time where the Boko Haram would come and hide in the midst of people, throw IEDs, at the military, or shoot the military, and the military will come back and shoot everybody in the society. People were just being killed. The people needed to rise up, and they rose up in defense of themselves. We got to a point where the youth in Borno, with mere sticks, were able to chase Boko Haram out of Maiduguri. So what I'm trying to say is that we cannot hold our arms and say, yes, there is violence by talks in the presidential elections, so we're not, how do we help the situation? Are we going to address the situation by doing nothing? I think there has to be an increased participation, and then we should get to a point where we begin to look at things on the basis of credibility. This issue of only getting involved because when issues of religion, issues of ethnicity come in place, I think we should depart from it in this country.
Let's quickly come back to this studio here. In wrapping up some of these issues that we're talking about, the Electoral Act. A lot of people have said we need it to come on board, just so it can streamline a lot of things. We have 91 political parties. Some people have said we really don't need all of that. What's your take on this ahead of 2023?
Before I profile everybody who have been watching me since 2015, especially when the first verdict issue, it was not called verdict then.
Nigeria
exactly, but it was the same pattern. Know that I am looking more for a depersonalized process, so I will not be blowing all this grammar every day, the same thing, running a circus. What with the Electoral Act, whereby INEC have been stripped the power to determine who or what should be eventually called a political party and all that. And like I said, there seemed to me, my personal view, that even the flooding of the electoral space with the political parties was also contrived. And it has helped to create that confusion that was intended. You see many of them will fizzle away. And it was very disgraceful that some people who even knew that even their own family will not vote for them came out for presidency. There was no need for all those type of things. Some of them did not spend the amount of money you would spend to do primaries for a local government chairmanship. So because you run around in the media space, what they call social media and so on, it created noise and caused more confusion. He talked about those people who could not even fold the... yes, that's the confusion, and it was designed. So in one way or the other, it helped. Talking about the Electoral Act, therefore, it should be amended to ensure that there is a streamlining of the number of political parties based on certain stringent conditions.
Criteria.
Yeah. And for you to jump out like a cockroach, that you want to run for any elective office, there must be some stringent conditions too, to ensure that the political space is sanitized. Presently, it is just like a highly pedestrian environment in which every Tom, Dick, and Harry jumps in. And that has been creating a lot of problems. Talking, perhaps, I don't know whether this is the last point I will have to make on this program now. A depersonalized process is the ultimate. It will save us money. If you want a technology to go and hack, you meet us at the cyberspace, because we would have taken all the necessary precautions using the present available technologies to secure the data that will be collected in hacking. Okay. If we did not depersonalize ATM, telephone, and so on, the telephone companies would have been knocking on everybody's door to pay their bills.
Yes, yes. Norwa, your final word.
I think that for me, I'd like to speak to the president. He has an opportunity to create a legacy. This is something that nobody else has been able to do. If you check, Obasanjo didn't do it because of that term. Jonathan didn't do it for many reasons. He has an opportunity. And the last time he said to us, I'm for nobody, I'm for everybody. He didn't mean it. This time around, I would like him to mean what he says.
You think he didn't mean it?
Well, I mean, it was obvious. I'd like him to mean what he says and do what he says he would do. And one of the things he can do for Nigeria is the electoral process, so that this will be the last time we will shed this amount of blood because we are voting for people. And it can be fixed. Okay. There are solutions available. So, Mr. President, please do something.
Okay. Mr. Gusau, your last word, please, in one sentence.
My last word is there's a need for us to regulate this issue of defections. The National Assembly should consider the need to probably place a limit within which one can defect. For instance, you can have, the law can stipulate that defections can only happen after 3 electoral cycles. And of course, there's already an existing law that when political parties don't win any seats, they cease to exist. And maybe that law too should strengthen that parties will not be registered until after 3 electoral cycles. So what it means is that if you defect from APC to PDP or PDP to APC, you cannot defect again until after another 12 years. So there will be no defections. Okay. Unless we address that, we will continue to have a lot of problems.
Okay. Thank you very much, Mr. Issa Gusau, spokesperson to the Borno State Governor, who joined us from our studio in Abuja, Mr. Chima Naji, legal practitioner, and Mr. Norwa Edokolo, a development expert. Thank you all very much for coming to share your insights with us this morning.
Thank you.